Hey guys, welcome to Listen Bitch Presents Tell Me Why You're Special. This is the arena where we don't just talk about healing, we talk about survival and what it costs a person. Because the truth is, a lot of people are alive, but they are not living. They're just surviving, walking on eggshells, living in fear, doubting themselves, carrying shame, repeating pain, staying small, trying to feel safe. The list goes on. We don't have time in that for this show, but even after enough trauma, fear stops feeling like an emotion. It just starts to feel like the identity. God did not create people to stay trapped in survival mode forever. And some people, after unimaginable pain, decide to walk directly into the things that terrify them until fear no longer owns them. So today, we're going to talk about trauma. We're going to talk about resilience, fear, shame, emotional survival, and what it really means to transform pain into purpose. I'm very excited because I feel like my guest, Jessie Torres, today in the hot seat is really going to speak to you guys. I would say maybe have a notebook, even take some notes today. Today's guest, Jessie Torres, she is a peak performance coach and a life strategist whose story of abuse and grief and fear and survival and radical personal transformation has shaped the way that she helps people redeem their lives. Jessie, thank you so much for coming into the hot seat. I guess we'll just
Thank
go.
you for having me.
Yeah, of course. We'll go straight to the meat and potatoes of the show. What did fear feel like inside your body during the years that you were surviving abuse and trauma?
It's such a great question. And I wasn't taught to actually ask my body that for many, many, many years. Right? I think when we start to unveil the things that have hurt us, we go cognitively, we go emotionally, we forget about the body. And so for me, a big part of it has always resonated in my stomach. Fear lives there, anticipation, hypervigilance, all there. And for years, I thought it was my diet. I thought it was bad eating habits,
Yeah.
so many things. And when that first person asked me, where do you feel that moment at when you were an 8-year old? And one of the biggest moments in my memory, I was like, oh. So, yeah, I would say right there in my gut.
Yeah. When someone grows up around abuse and fear, how does it shape the way they see themselves? How did it shape the way you saw yourself?
Well, it created a inner world of mistrust, fear. Fear would be running the show because I didn't know what was real. My dad told me, don't trust anybody. They just want to get in your pants. And then my ex said, don't trust anybody. People want to subconsciously break up a good thing, so don't talk about our marriage to anybody. So, on top of my own experience and my own meaning making, I had who I consider to be my people at the time tell me the same thing. So it just created an opportunity where hiding felt safer.
Yeah. Oh, I could definitely see that. You said survival became your home. Uh,
Mhm.
Jackie, what does survival mode actually look like in everyday life?
Survival back then
Or Jesse,
meant,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, it's okay. Um, it felt alert, like I'm always navigating risk. I'm always preparing in advance of the when I was little, I would make traps to warn me when my dad was coming into my room at night. When I was older and my ex was there, I would buy 10 combs so that when he couldn't find the one comb, I had backups.
Yeah.
Right? So in one context, it created a lot of vigilance, it created a lot of fear, it created a lot of anxiety. But at the same time, which is what I do work with now, is kind of what are the gifts of it? It created a very creative little girl, a very resourceful little girl, a very courageous little girl, and someone that navigated and needed that muscle down the road when I didn't know I was going to need it, but God or universe or source, whatever your belief is, did.
Yeah. I so unfortunately there's probably quite a few people listening that grew up in the same kind of, not exactly the same, but can relate to your trauma. Um
Mhm.
and I see the role of shame coming in a lot in stories like yours and theirs. What role did shame play in your life?
Um, a big one. I think it's part of my dharma, if you will, to have felt it on a visceral level. When we're young, we don't realize we're creating meaning around our experience. And then that meaning turns into behavior, and that meaning turns into habits, and then that meaning turns into an identity. So I adopted the identity that I was something to be ashamed of. One, two, I was damaged goods. No one would love me because this horrible thing happened to me. And I was now unlovable. So that created the shame, not only in my belief system, but in how I showed up in the world. I looked down at the ground. I didn't make eye contact with anybody. I'm just like, I'm this thing that caused this damage, so I'm not worthy of people's love. So shame was very, very big.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's people listening right now that can very much relate to that, and it's heartbreaking the amount of people that can relate to that. How do you
Very
think,
much.
how do you see people unknowingly staying loyal to that pain and that limitation?
They do it because they don't know they could change it, right? Part of it is it's unconscious. I didn't, back when I owned that belief, I couldn't have consciously spoke into this is what I believe about myself. I didn't know I was living with shame. I didn't have a word for it. So I think that keeps people in that cycle. The very first time I read a book, and it was The Unmistakable Touch of Grace by Cheryl Richardson. And I don't remember the entire book, but I remember there was a page in there that told me I could believe differently. And it blew my mind. I'm like, what? Wait, no, but I was raised this way. I was taught this. I was like, I can change that. It was literally, I call it a short circuit moment. Short circuited my brain. And I thought, wow, I can actually believe what I choose to believe, not what I was taught to believe. And that opened up the opportunity for me to start to see things differently.
I love that. And I think,
Mhm.
I mean, that's an incredible moment to have. And the fact that you're doing the work to help other people have that short circuit moment to say, like, you don't have to be stuck in this space. You
Very much.
intentionally, Jessie started doing things that scared you. I love this because the great advice is like, what's the next scary thing you can do? It's my challenge to myself, like, what's the next scary thing? Um, Tell me what got you to start doing this and why. Doing the shit that scares you.
I think part of it was also survival. At this point now, I had come out of my 18-year marriage, which I was very hurt by. I was very apathetic. And at that point, I knew that I had to continue to create a life for my kids. Now, they were teenagers. I have twin boys. They were 17 and my daughter was 15. And it was a very difficult time for them. It's like their whole world got the rug pulled out from underneath. And at that point, I didn't even drive out of my own city. Like I felt I was so small in my inner world that I was terrified of life. And now I find myself alone with these three kids who are massively traumatized over the breakup of our family. And I knew that it was not survivable for me to stay hidden. If it scared me, I put myself on the front lines because I knew I had to get beyond my fear. And it's kind of like what we were trained back in the day was when you can't, you must.
Yeah.
So that minute that it's just like somebody makes an offer, like I did a fitness competition, which was on so many layers terrifying for me. One, because it addressed my body, which I had already shame about. It addresses being in a bikini. It addresses being in front of judges. It addresses being like all the layers. And I was going to the gym, and the group of girls at the gym, not just girls, guys too, but they were all preparing for this fitness competition. I'm like, what is this? What are you guys talking about? And
Yeah.
so the owner of the gym said, you should join us. And I'm like, oh, I'm too old. No, no. She's like, we got from 25 to 65 coming. You should do it. And I'm like, no, no, no. But I kept showing up. And then one of the girls said, hey, we're going to downtown to buy dresses. We got one seat left. Anybody want to come? And I'm like, sure, I'll come join you guys just for the fun of it.
For fun.
And then I dropped $300 on a dress and I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing this.
Now you have to go.
Yes. So I didn't know at the time, again, I had no language for it. I was in that survival state of like, I've got to do something different. I got to shake out my fear, my shyness, my wanting to stay hidden. And I took an improv class, which is so, again, layers of fear around that. But the cool thing about improv is there's no wrong. It's like you're just improvising. So they start you with, hey, you, Brandon, start.
Yeah.
Oh, the football came flying through the kitchen window as I was eating breakfast. Okay, Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
And then it landed on my pancakes, and we just get to make it up as we go. So it just kind of started to open me up a little bit. Then I went next level and took an acting class.
That's
And
amazing.
so there were so many different things that I knew I had to do in order to unveil the power that I had within that I didn't know I had within. I just knew I needed to do something differently. And I was very adventurous and I didn't know I was building grit at that moment, but I was.
And you were in it. I love that. I love that, every next level just called something out of you and you were
Mhm.
willing to lean into that. What happens psychologically when someone realizes that fear has been running their entire life?
What happens on the other side of that?
Yeah.
Well, a couple of things. What's important, and I always use this with my clients, is that you don't bring this to the party, which is a gavel, which is a judgment, right?
Hmm.
It's like when you recognize that fear's been driving your life, a lot of times we beat ourselves up about it. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I've been in prison all these years and I had the key in my pocket the whole time, right? And if you don't judge yourself around that and you look at it as some sort of divine choreography, a part of your journey to help chisel courage, because the very definition of courage has to have fear involved.
Yeah.
So when I see that people have lived with fear their whole lives, what I see is not a fearful person. I see a very courageous person because every time they navigate fear, they're activating a courage muscle. So if you can come out of the judgment and recognize you've been living in fear, you can actually step into liberation. You can step into freedom. You can step into, oh my God, I'm no longer willing to let fear drive my life. I'm going to start to suck the juice out of life.
Yeah.
I'm going to start living it. And yeah, there is risk. But my perception is ultimately after we work together that there is no wrong. Mistakes are just opportunities for feedback. It's not failure, it's just feedback. It's opportunities to grow and expand, right? To deepen our resolve. But oftentimes we look at it as God's punishment or an uppercut in life or whatever. And it's just like, well, that could feel like that's true. And I don't believe God wastes the pain. I believe we do if we choose to. So if we can look at it from the perspective of like, how could this be the greatest thing that's ever happened to me? Or how could this be an opportunity for my growth or expansion? All of a sudden, it opens up a window to really look fear in the face and say, I'm no longer willing to let you drive. I'm going to find the gift in this moment and I'm going to build a muscle so I can be better moving forward.
I love that. Everything you just said, and especially the part, Jesse, where you're like, God doesn't waste
Waste the pain.
pain.
Yeah.
I think, that's on my journey. I mean, the Bible's been the guidebook, right?
Hmm.
That's the guidebook. Do not be afraid. As many times as I've ever read that, and it's just about being able to show up anyway, to do the thing. Like it's faith over fear every single time. I mean, that's incredible. He doesn't waste it. So everyone who's listening, like your mess is really your message. I don't just say that. It's not just a fun punchline at the end of the show. It is the actual truth that
Right.
could be your launching point if you're willing.
Mhm.
What do you see? What is the difference between being a victim and staying trapped in victim identity?
And what about that?
What is the difference between that? Because I think there's a difference of like being a victim and someone
Mhm.
who is just trapped in victim identity.
Well, they say part of it is our mindset. So pain is a part of life, but suffering is optional, right? It's a choice. And part of the suffering part is when we repeat the story over and over. I'm this way because don't you know, this thing happened to me,
Yeah.
right? And so we kind of repeat that and we start to embody the identity of victim. So there's a difference between being a victim and being victimized. Right. When we're little, we were victimized. We didn't know any better. For me, it was my father. So yes, that happened. But if I become a victim of it, it's because I retell the story and I hold on to that as blame for me not living my best life. Like I can't because don't you know, my dad called me a loser every day. And like, okay, great. But now you're an adult and that part needs to be alchemized so that you can recognize you're the divinity that you were made from the moment you took your breath,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a very, very fine line, but a very important point to make because I do believe we have a lot of victim mentality in our society, and that's part of my purpose is to help alchemize that. So we don't look at our journey as a victimization. We look at it as a divine choreography. an opportunity, an agreement maybe before we came here that God, you know what? I want to experience life on earth, but you know what? I want to experience it as forgiveness. And God's like, okay, great. If you're going to experience life as forgiveness, well, you're going to need something to
You have to
forgive.
go through it.
So then somebody volunteered. My dad, I'll be that for you. My mom, I'll ignore what's going on right under my nose. I'll
Hmm.
be that for you.
Hmm.
Right. And so together we came here for me to find that. Now, ultimately, what happens when we stay in a victim story is we don't find that. I don't find the muscle of what living with shame gave me, which was an opportunity to declare my own divinity, even when shame wanted to keep playing, right? That record wanted to keep playing. But taking that stand and saying, no, I'm not something to be ashamed. I'm actually the divine perfection God created me to be. And the only belief that I am anything other than that divinity is a belief in my mind.
Yeah.
And with that, I have the power to change it.
Yeah. I love that so much. And especially just talking about how, we kind of chose the experience. It's that same thing of, we came here to feel everything. And at the
Right.
same time, even in a daily prayer, right? Like my husband's like, I prayed for patience today and I swear everybody pissed me off. And I'm like, yeah, like you got all the opportunities to exercise the patience and
Exactly.
you missed that part of it. So I think people just don't understand like what we ask for, we really do get, but not in the way we think. We think some magic wand is going to come and poof, all of a sudden Jessie just feels patient and she's not
Right.
reactive. No, like you're going to be put in situations where you're tested to see, like, to give yourself chances of growth. And it's about finding that balance of the beauty in the experience of human.
Well, either way, you get the opportunity to decide what it means. You can
Yeah,
say God is punishing me, or you can say God is chiseling me.
yeah,
Right? But again, why if God is if we look at it from the sense of, this unconditional love and like we love our children, I don't just zap them with courage. I give them opportunities to be courageous. And why? Because I want them to own the muscle. I want them to build it. If I just zap them, I take away the opportunity of them actually feeling strong when they acted strong in a very, disempowering or a tragic moment.
right.
So strength and courage and all these things that we pray for, if we're just zapped with it, then we miss the moment of building that muscle, and God wouldn't do that to us.
No. And it missed the whole point of the human experience. It it
That's right.
it wouldn't be
That's
what it
right.
was. I'm going to sidestep a little bit in our conversation because I want to
Mhm.
talk about grief. Not just, in what you felt when you lost your brothers, but I think grief in everyday life because like I know that, my childhood wasn't great and I grieve that. I grieve the relationship I didn't get to have with my mom. I grieve even now I have two of my six kids have moved out. I grieve that. Like
Mhm.
there's grief is a huge part of life. And I think
Right.
it just doesn't get enough breath. It doesn't get enough, like we're not recognizing that we all grieve for a lot of things in a lot of different ways. And so I want to talk about kind of your process of grieving your childhood, grieving, who you had to become after divorce and even the change of grief after losing your brothers. Like how did you process all that?
Well, grief in totality, I think you're right. We have so many definitions. We have an expectation. We set all things. Grief is like you said, it's a part of our ongoing process. I believe that either we stay in it like quicksand,
Mm-hmm.
or we try to muscle out of it quickly. And I would say be conscious about it. Give it its time, give it its moment, but put a clock on it. And what I mean by that is like, oh, I'm going to give myself a year to grieve my ex or my husband or whatever that passed away or whatever the story is. But if you're consciously aware, I'm going to feel all the feelings of loss,
Yeah.
then it excavates and clears. But I think it's our resistance or our belief that that shouldn't have happened,
Yeah.
right? When I think about my brothers and their deaths, I'm like, I could walk around saying that shouldn't have happened. But if I do that, I'm arguing with the reality that it did.
Yeah.
And when I argue with that reality, I sign up to suffer. So I have to find the deeper meaning. And when I say God doesn't waste the pain, I say that about losing my brothers. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know their contract with God. For all I know, my older brother was here and he said, 29 years, I'm going to give 29 years and then I'm going to come back home. But the impact of me leaving is what I'm there for. I'm there
Yeah.
to create impact for 29 years and my little brother for 43 years. right? It's just like, okay, so in 43 years, I'm going to create this experience in life. And when I come back home, it's going to cause an impact. And that was my prayer. Initially, when my older brother was killed, I lost my faith. I turned my back on God. I
Mm-hmm.
flipped God off even.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't know if you exist. What if there's nothing? What if
Right.
we get buried with, 6 feet under with worms crawling out of our eye holes? That's literally what I was saying.
Yeah.
And then I thought, if you do exist, God, then I hate you for taking my brother.
Yep.
So that's where I was. And it was until he showed himself to me in a moment of cathartic grief. And he just presented himself all in white. And there was this, what looked like other people, but visions are fuzzy. And all he did is gesture with his arm. And he said, Jess, everything is as it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I didn't really know what it meant, but I know it brought me peace. And from that created a journey of my own connection to God or spirit, like what was in my heart. So fast forward 30 years later, when my little brother was murdered, um, it was a what the frick, God.
Yeah.
That was, and that's just my humanness, but I didn't turn my back on it. I just said, I trust that everything is in divine order, but holy crap, I already checked this box. How am I checking this again?
Yeah.
If both my brothers are meant to be taken, what do you want with me? And I got an answer. It wasn't what I wanted, but and the answer was, Jesse, you need to eat your own medicine. And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, if you're going to teach people to find a light in the darkest moments, you need to do that right now.
Oh.
And my little brother's death was very different than my older brother's. And I had, everything from baby mamas to gangbangers to detectives to like so many different things that were coming into the space. And when I got that message, I was like, okay, how do I find the light in all of this? To your point earlier, life is polarity. If we want to experience ecstasy, we have to know the opposite,
Yep.
right? If we want light, we need to experience dark. So in that dark moment, I was able to connect to the depth of my grief was equivalent to the amount of love that I had. My family showing up in ways that I didn't expect. Three of his oldest daughters who had different mothers bonding at the loss of their father. They acted like they grew up together. They had
Oh,
never met
wow.
before. Yeah. And people posting on his Instagram about how he changed their lives with some of the things he did, even while in prison.
Yeah.
So there was light all around. It's just sometimes when the pain is so profound, we get stuck in
We
it.
can't see it. Yeah.
So give yourself permission to grieve, to feel, cry about it, and then say, okay, so tomorrow I'm going to focus on blah, blah, blah. And then if you feel grief, that's it. Give yourself a clock. I'm going to feel the fullest amount of grief that I feel in this moment. And when you consciously do that, you say, I'm going to, for an hour, I'm going to feel all of it.
Yeah.
You find that you don't want to stay in it longer than that.
Right.
Right? And you find that maybe it takes 30 minutes and then maybe it takes a few minutes and then maybe you have a little cry and you wipe it off and you continue to go. And eventually it starts to loosen its grip. But I think part of grief, to your point, it is a part of our lives. There's loss consistently, loss of pets, loss of jobs, loss of, cubicle connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so if we allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to express our emotions, you'll find that it loosens its grip. It's when we try to run away from it or we try to bury it or we just loop the stories over and over again, it could become quicksand and keep us stuck.
Yeah. I love that. I'm glad I sidestepped there because that was great. And I mean, what a gift that those girls came. I mean, to be able to see the beauty in something, I think
Yeah,
it's just amazing. I wish everybody just knew that little secret. I think it would just change so many people's lives, like to be
very
able to
much.
hold. Yeah.
Well, to your point, it's always available. And when we talk about darkness or positive or negatives or whatever, remember, darkness isn't real. It's just
Right.
the absence of light.
Yep.
So when you feel darkness all around, look for the light. I love this quote by Mr. Rogers when 9/11 happened. The children were really scared because what were parents doing? They were replaying the planes hitting the buildings over and over again. They could feel the tension in the room. So he got down to the children's level and he looks at them and he says, you know what? When there's chaos, there's always helpers. Look
Mm.
for the helpers. right? And so again, that opens your heart to go, oh my gosh, those firefighters running into the fire, right? When everybody's running away, there's always this beauty to be found. It's the magnificence of this journey called life. And it doesn't, we still hurt, we still feel, but there's always light if you seek it.
Yeah, I love that. There is always light. And also, I think two things can be true at the same time. We can be pissed off and we could say this shouldn't have happened. That's
Mhm.
true. This shouldn't have happened, but also it did. And let's feel that,
Right.
or there's always truth in the things we say, or, we try to should and shouldn't ourselves to death. And I think
Hmm.
the things could be true. Like the thing is true. Like, yeah, I could have done something different. I didn't. Where do I go now?
Right.
I should have done
Exactly.
something different. Maybe I didn't know what I know now. I'll try again, and just can. That's the growth. That's the growth.
Well,
You
that's the whole outcome of stepping
Yeah.
into something versus running away from it. It's just like failure is not failure, it's just feedback.
Yep. That's
Here's how not to do it.
yes. Everything is data. It's just
Yeah,
information, and our brain is an ever evolving machine. It's not set in stone. And that's, I think that's the magic of our human experience. The greatest gift he gave us was a brain with neuroplasticity. We get to change all the things.
right.
You talk about fierce grace. What does that mean?
I believe it's the dual energy we all have. So it's the mama bear energy that's going to protect her cubs, and it's the nurturer and the lover. It's the masculine and the feminine. It's the ability to balance both. I think sometimes we get stuck in one or the other, or we have a judgment of the other, and both are beautiful when you can dance within both. Now, generally, we are more one than we are the other. If we're feminine, then we kind of lead with that. But we don't want to shame our masculine. That's just part of who we are. So if I need to be fierce, I'm going to bring fierce to the game. Mess with my cubs, you're going to see a different side of me, right? But at night, I'm singing, You Are My Sunshine. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's being able to have the balance of both. And I think that when we start to do our own inner work and we start to really find the powerful part of us and the true part of us, and we choose to live from that place, we start to see humanity differently. We start to bring compassion to our lenses versus the world's going to hell and back. You know what I mean? Like we can start to feel that sense of doom because, well, there's a lot going on, but there always has been a lot going on.
Yeah.
So if we can keep our lenses from the lenses of love and who we get to what we get to give, even our men, even though they're masculine by trait, I say that a soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, he fights because he loves what's behind him,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a different energy. That's bringing the feminine heart to be the leader, allowing the warrior to lead, but to lead with heart. And so creating that balance and not dishonoring one or the other creates a beautiful sense of how to function in our day to day.
I love that. What would you say to someone listening who secretly feels just emotionally dead inside right now?
I would first say I'm sorry for whatever it is that hurt you. Um, and there's a beautiful life still yet to be lived, and that you matter. You matter. Whether you believe it or not, you matter. And every choice you make, I personally believe that kindness, an act of kindness, saved my life at a time where I didn't want to be here. And so we underestimate the power that we have in an act of kindness. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling like it just, what's the point? Go love somebody. Go volunteer, go give, because love begets love. And so when you're able to give that to somebody, you end up receiving the love in your heart of being the person that gave and also watching the recipient receive your love. And it just snaps us out of our own inner world, right? Where we feel there's no point. There's no, like, okay, if that's, I can appreciate, I don't know what happened to you that brought you here. And for that, I'm sorry. And you still matter to the human being, the Starbucks lady who's probably just going through divorce and barely making ends meet and hates leaving her children. And you walk up and you say, You have a beautiful smile, and it changes her whole trajectory. Please don't underestimate your power as a human being because you never know what's going on in someone's world.
I love that. I'm going to ask you one fun final question, and then I want you to let everybody know how they can get resourced with you, what it looks like if someone wants to work with you, and where they can find you.
Sure.
So, my last question: what is something that present day fearless Jessie does that younger, terrified Jessie would never believe you do now?
Love unapologetically. And I say that I can even feel the emotion behind saying that
Yeah.
because love was who I knew myself to be, but it was wronged. It was wronged consistently. It was made dirty. It was made inappropriate. And it was also made like love is great, Jesse, but love doesn't pay the bills.
Oh, yeah.
So it was shut down, and because of how I was brought up with the abuse with my father, and then in my marriage, I just felt so much shame that to love meant I was being dirty, or and I was called these names. So so I didn't know how to break myself from being who I am without having some sort of negative association to it. So now I get to love fully. I get to be the one that always hugs you, even if you don't want it. I mean, I always respect everybody's wishes.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but I get to be that expression, and I've had it where I've been told my love's overwhelming,
Yeah.
and that was at a moment in time where I wasn't ready to receive that message, and it hurt me really bad. Now I recognize that she didn't love herself enough to believe that my love was genuine,
Yeah.
right? But again, it's okay. I'm going to keep loving. I'm going to keep loving. I'm going to keep seeing you through the lenses of love, no matter what you've done, no matter what you think you've been bad about. All I see is somebody who God chiseled into this beautiful masterpiece to have this awakening because the depth of your darkness is converse to the height of your light if you seek it.
I love that. How can people find you? How can they get resourced with you?
I actually have a gift for your listeners. It's called the 10-Step Guide to Freedom. And it's kind of addressing your question earlier. What can one person do right now? Whatever your situation is, no matter how dire you think it is, this will give you 10 steps that you can take right now. And where you can find me is iamfiercegrace.com. Go there. There's tons of ways that you can work with me. And if you don't know what that is, just click the Let's Connect button. And I'm happy to offer a free call just to see where you're at and see if I can be of service. And if I can't, I'll guide you to where you can.
I love that.
Yeah.
Jesse, this is the part of the show where I get to tell you what I think makes you special for what that's worth.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
it's not just that you survived pain, it's that you transformed your relationship with it. You stopped seeing
Mm.
yourself as broken, you stopped seeing yourself as weak, you stopped seeing your story as proof that you were damaged beyond repair. And instead, you have learned to recognize the resilience, the courage, the endurance, the spirit that was present in you the entire time. And the fact that you're out here helping people realize that they are not just the wounded versions of themselves, the fact that you are willing to love without measure and without judgment, I think from everything you've been through, that is a testament to what God has created in you, and I love that. Um,
Thank you.
I love that you are showing people that it's important just to get back up. And I think that makes you incredibly special. And to everyone listening,
Thank you very much.
fear is going to convince you that staying small is safe.
Yeah.
But staying small has a price.
Mhm.
Survival has a price. Silence has a price. And eventually you have to decide whether your pain will become your prison or if it's going to be your purpose. And God doesn't waste pain. That's exactly what Jesse said. It is not wasted. It's people that waste it.
Mhm.
People waste the pain. And sometimes the very thing that almost destroyed you becomes the thing that can help someone else survive. So I'm
Very
telling
much.
you to be courageous, be intentional, and remember that your mess is your message. And I mean that with my heart and soul. Even the abuse, even the grief, even the fear, even the shame, even the survival mode, those things become the birthplace of your purpose. It's your origin story. If this episode spoke to you, please share it out. There's probably someone out there that wouldn't get their hands on this free gift that Jesse gave you today, and they need to hear the episode. So I'm asking you to share it. It's a very selfless move. It takes a couple of seconds. We'll be very grateful. You guys are ready for the hot seat. I dare you to come tell me why you're special. Jesse, this was a beautiful conversation. Thank you for serving my audience today. I think your story is amazing.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here, and I appreciate the audience.